we have sound, yay. Well, greetings. My toxic fan club is getting desperate for attention. I've hardly been on either site for weeks, and I've only posted enough to get them annoyed. So, this is why I don't bother. Here's Michael Carter, who's one of the ranter crowd. He's one of this crew is like an old organized internet crime crowd. They evolved on these message boards where they plan out their little crime schemes, and there's mostly advanced fee fraud letters, the Nigerian 419 things, and the phishing, where they'll send out a fake ad, and it goes to a website that just grabs the credit card number and steals it instead of make an order. And somewhere along the line, these people got into, and there's like networks of these troll syndicates, where like they'll just there's just dozens and dozens of little schemes. I mean, they're just deviants that are constantly dreaming up nasty things to do to people. And then some of them have focus, where there's people that they're actually being paid to fuck with, like me. And so here's this Michael Carter. He has his own cash dating site somewhere. I don't know if he's still running it, but he doesn't talk about that much. So, I have no idea what the real game with this Hoffman crowd is, but they're pretending to be like big time cocaine manufacturers and distributors, and heroin out in the open. Which is really, like, hey guys. And the cops refuse to look at any of it. I'm still waiting to hear back from the South Tucson police. The sergeant talked to me Friday, and I gave him a few days to talk to this commander and get back to me, but he hasn't. So I guess I'll call him tomorrow. They didn't love that. I'm not posting on the site as much at all, if any. Soon I'm going to get shit like this with Carter. I don't know where the fuck they got this from, but there's a digger, a young digger, deadhead digger, who hooked up with Real Things a few years back when I was on Euclid, and I don't know where they got this from, but they think that this guy Seven calls himself 7-Eleven. Ass raped me numerous times. It's like, you people are insane. You're projecting your own fucking fantasies at me. Seven, as far as I know, disingratiated himself with most of the people in the gym business around the area where I work, and I haven't seen him for several years. It's possible that he's not even coming out of the mountains. As last time I saw, he had a woman that he was building a cabin for up in Montana or something. There's Argle Bargle. I don't have a spare room, dude. I have no spare room. And there's nothing. The only thing that's ever gone in my ass is one doctor stuck their finger there to check my prostate once. There's no point in just even engaging any of this shit. It's even stupid to talk about it. But this is the last thing I. This is twisted troll logic. Lisa Pardo is one of the ranters, the Hoffman crowd. And years ago, she was playing. She's just a big, she's a large woman who has is call it a post whore. You can't post anything without getting her attention. She finally got sick of it because I got nastier than her. Is what it came down to. And here's Sneasel. Remember when Lisa triggered Tom so hard he threatened to put her kids on Craigslist? That's some hardcore hobo anger. No, that was a prank. That it was just a prank. And here's a narcissist calling rainbows a narcissist. Yeah, fuck you, dude. You're just nuts. You're all nuts. You're all ego-driven, fucking greedy, toxic men. They're just greedy, toxic men. And here's this idiot propagating the lie. You can't go to a gathering because everybody knows you. Everyone knows you as a pedophile dog fucker. This is not true. And from what I'm hearing, nobody who cares about that stuff that's actually watching it at the gatherings even wants to hear about bullshit that's that old and that twisted. They got a lot more crazy shit going on, like these videos that I posted right now, than like ancient shit that's been twisted beyond. There's people that have known me for 30 years, man, that know that there's people that know that story when it happened. So fuck off with this bullshit. There's just no point in even trying to engage these people. Because there's just so much mean, stupid, hateful shit. Misinformed, mean, and stupid. Just all sorts of projections of weird crap.
Forest Road 76, Tres Ritos, New Mexico. You had a class Louboutin which you have an empty holster for on your hip. I disarmed you while you tried to swing it at me. Oh, those are you, baby.
They're going off on the first rainbow gathering. I don't even want to give these people the airtime. I mean, they're just mean, stupid white men. Very white, very fascist, very much statist, very much tools of the perpetual war machine. people are just like humans that are headed for extinction very soon. Oh, and let's see what. Here's Dread Pirate Ribo. Have you tried being nice to people? That might help out a lot. Well, here's a friend of mine who, at 3 in the morning, was awake, embarrassed, regretful, and ashamed of herself for blowing up at me when I uh, corrected her. I mean, she's been very ill, in a lot of pain, and she was persistently misgendering me. And I called her, and she got angry. And then at 3 in the morning, she was like 6 inches of messaging, apologizing, and because she couldn't sleep. And I told her, there's no need to feel ashamed, get some sleep. And she said, you're kinder than I deserve. I love you. Garrett, shit, he was supposed to call me Monday or Tuesday. I probably should remind him it's going to be Wednesday tomorrow. He's going to call me from the shop Monday or Tuesday. He's been, I don't know what's going on there. He's been doing a lot of business. It's summertime, I guess. It's the season, and he's been just totally overwhelmed with his business. I really don't need to waste the time on these people. Here. You want to hear sick? This is like the kiwi farms. This is. These people believe in themselves. You know, these people who are calling themselves like, you know, I just joined Gab today. That's a scary place. Scary shit going on there. This is a QAnon crowd. Because somebody, you know, at Kiwi Farms, there's at least people that can communicate respectfully and intelligently. And there's somebody who thought that I should do an interview with on something called the Ralph Retort, I think. I forget. It was something like that. God, I got too many. I have too many tabs open right now, and I look at them, and there are things I don't want to close right away. This one can close. What's this? Oh, fact check. Yeah, this book has Patrick Ward. The nature of war against Americans in the past is the nature of war now. This is interesting. These guys, I gotta check on this before I even start reading this. I gotta check these guys out. Oh shit. Consortium News. I forget who posted it too. So I just it was like, I'm gonna put that aside and read it later. What do we want? We want the media bias. I don't care. I'm not gonna give you money. Fuck you. I don't trust this site very much anyway. They sometimes get a little bit too
persnickety about bad news. Left center bias. Okay. And they get a middle score for factual reporting. The scores range from very high, mostly factual, mixed, low, very low, very mostly factual, and left to center. So, let's see what they had to say. Where'd it go? Okay, we don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need that. That we need. Let's put that off to the side. Let's put this off to the side. And this. And that can close. Let's get back to this. Right at the moment, the actual writing that I am doing and working on, it has to do with the repatriation of Native American body parts and artifacts, especially from these schools where and this is the history of I really need to work in a lot about the changes in the way Native Americans were treated right about the time of Watergate. There were huge changes. It's probably the most righteous legislative acts of Nixon's entire career was changing. I can't quote the acts right off the top of my head. I need to read the stuff. There were several things that he did that just totally changed the reality for the Native nations. Which is what led to the proliferation of casinos and native flags. I wrote about that the other day. But the Black history people, there's plenty of them. Natives have been decimated. The blacks were only kept enslaved. The natives were murdered, mass murder. And the blacks have had economic opportunity that natives have never had. And these casinos really aren't that wonderful to them. That's causing a lot more trouble for the people than profiting in a lot of places. But again, I don't want to say too much because it's not really my place and I don't know it deeply enough to be able to speak accurately. So I'll leave that alone for now. But this is tagged American Empire. It's a book, I guess. The War Against it's a. This is a book. Oh shit. Okay. As some readers may have noticed, Antony Blinken has the State Department festooning its embassies around the world with BLM banners and the rainbow flag of the sexual identity movement, commonly known as LGBTQI+. Well, it's not common as LGBT. In recent years, and the current, as far as I'm to see it, I probably should check GLAAD on this one. The current commonly accepted, the most common usage is LGBTQIA+. And as our virtuous Secretary of State explained in April, when he authorized these advertisements for America's splendidly raised consciousness, the BLM pennant commemorates the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis last year. The familiar LGBTQI+ colors will fly on our flagpoles in foreign capitals for the duration of the 2021 Pride season. Well, Pride doesn't happen here until October 2nd. So Our guitar strumming chief diplomat put it when announcing this. This is policy. I suppose we are to call it. Taking the very serious cause for equal rights and turning it into cover for an extremely aggressive foreign policy, it makes for a pretty weird sight if you've seen any of the pictures. Then again, so does our Tony as he flits around the world on the wings of an angel. In the same line, there is a CIA recruitment advertisement made public in May, the instantly famous woke video. This is an absolute doozy, as all who have given it the 2 minutes and 26 seconds it requires seem to agree. I'm a woman of color. I'm the daughter of immigrants. I understand complicated policy questions, but can belt out a folk song in Spanish. I suffer a trendy form of anxiety. I earned my way up in the ranks of this organization. I'm a spook. This is the gist, as insidious as it is hopeless. Well, let's hear what she actually had to say.
When I was 17, I quoted Zora Neale Hurston's How It Feels to Be Colored Me in my college application essay. The line that spoke to me stated simply, I am not tragically colored. There is no sorrow dammed up in my soul nor lurking behind my eyes. I do not mind at all. At 17, I had no idea what life would bring, but Zora's sentiment articulated so beautifully how I felt as a daughter of immigrants then and now. Nothing about me was or is tragic. I am perfectly made. I can wax eloquent on complex legal issues in English while also belting Guayaquil de mis amores in Spanish. I can change a diaper with one hand and console a crying toddler with the other. I am a woman of color. I am a mom. I am a cisgender millennial who's been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I am intersectional, but my existence is not a box-checking exercise. I am a walking declaration, a woman whose inflection does not rise at the end of her sentences, suggesting that a question has been asked. I did not sneak into CIA. My employment was not and is not the result of a fluke or slip through the cracks. I earned my way in, and I earned my way up the ranks of this organization. I am educated, qualified, and competent, and sometimes I struggle. I struggle feeling like I could do more, be more to my 2 sons, and I struggle leaving the office when I feel there's so much more to do. I used to struggle with imposter syndrome, but at 36, I refuse to internalize misguided patriarchal ideas of what a woman can or should be. I am tired of feeling like I'm supposed to apologize for the space I occupy rather than intoxicate people with my effort, my brilliance. I am proud of me, full stop. My parents left everything they knew and loved to expose me to opportunities they never had. Because of them, I stand here today a proud first-generation Latina and officer at CIA. I am unapologetically me. I want you to be unapologetically you, whoever you are. Know your worth, command your space. Mija, you're worth it.
Oh, please. One is not surprised. It's long been evident that the intelligence community, we are reminded, is an equal opportunity employer. One is not surprised. It's long been evident there are simply not enough Yaleys to get done all the subversions, coup fomenting, drug dealing, assassinations, and media corruption the agency is charged with executing, all in its defense of democracy, of course. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, those among us with the shrill voices of children continue to defend the veracity of a chemical weapons attack in Syria 3 years ago, even as evidence of a put-up job and the corruption rife at the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons is open and shut. I don't know about that one. I have to look into that one. And I don't know which attack they're talking about. Aaron Mate has owned this story since his reports in the Gray Zone appeared earlier this year, though others, including your columnists, were on the case at the time the false flag was hoisted. I don't see what any of this has to do with the title. The nature of the war against Americans in the past is the nature of war now. I haven't seen him say anything about the nature of war. Yeah, I definitely don't want to get, the thing in Syria. I don't trust anybody outside of like the actual people, Syrians and people, people native to the Levant, and very few people that are reporting on it, like Vanessa Beeley, and what's her sidekick's name? I forget. Anybody else is like too much like disinformation flying around. To be noted, the mainstream press has scandalously left the OPCW story unreported. As independent media or allegedly independent media that smear Monte and others with usual light as air charges, creatures of Assad paid by the Russians, and so on. An especially vulgar commentator who goes by the Twitter name Bausch, who posed as a libertarian socialist, we must not miss that, now takes to comparing Assadists such as Monte, whose reporting has been exemplary, with Holocaust deniers. Out in the Silicon Valley, we have Reddit, among the most influential social media platforms now active, censoring thousands of users whose views do not conform to official versions of events and to our official ideology altogether. Somehow I got a -2 karma. I guess they don't like me. They only let me post because of it. This is evidently the work of one Jessica Ashew, a 30-something who moved over from the Atlantic Council, NATO-funded, U.S. government-funded 5 years ago to serve as director of policy. Ashew's background, which includes a spell as propaganda advisor in Abu Dhabi, is strongly suggestive of spookery, or at a minimum, objectionable collaboration with intelligence agencies. The New Yorker published a squeaky clean account of Ashew's censorship regime as she arrived at Reddit. Alan McLeod, an admirably scrupulous reporter from Mint-Press News, dispensed with the fluff and flogged in a straight-ahead piece on Ashew published a month ago. There are numerous other such cases. Notable among them is YouTube CEO Sharon Wojcicki's recent explanation interview on the World Economic Forum, the Google-owned video platform's conscientious effort to direct viewers away from independent news sites in favor of responsible sources. This is in the interest of our democracy, like everything else in this line one reads about these days. I don't even want to listen to this shit, but that's half hour of that. Not happening. The sooner we recognize these and many similar events as disparate dimensions of a concerted war waged against us, the better we will understand the air we breathe and the water we swim in. The sooner we cast these events in a historical context, the more readily will we grasp the gravity of our circumstances. Given the remarkable speed with which this war proceeds in the wrong direction, I count these circumstances very near dire. We really need to watch the legislation that they're trying to pass to, surveillance state stuff and anti-terrorist kind of stuff and anti-protesting, control of perception and control of information in the fields in which this war is waged. What is at issue? What is the prize? I guess we can read that. For well more than a century, foreign policy has been the purview of sequestered elites, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, typically of New England background. America's conduct abroad was their purchase. There was no need to defend this arrangement because no one challenged it, with exceptions such as the Anti-Imperialist League at the turn of the century. In a series of books published in the 1920s, and really this foreign policy of the WASPs has pretty much is what created the Republic in the first place. Let's see, the multinational industrialist banker gangsters. They're running a perpetual petroleum-powered perpetual war machine. They're getting rich off of like driving the whole planet to extinction. They're aliens. They have to be. They can't be Earth native. The people that are claiming control. I'm sorry. It's reptilians or something. I don't know. The way it comes to me is that the planet was quarantined 12,000 years ago or so because of it. And we're working it out. Anyway, in a series of books published in the 1920s, notably The Phantom Public, Macmillan, 1927, Walter Lippmann fairly celebrated the state of ignorance this imposed on the public. The private citizen today has come to feel rather like a deaf spectator in the back row. Public affairs are in no convincing way his affairs. They're for the most part invisible. They're managed, if they're managed at all, at distant centers from behind the scenes by unnamed powers. This is like, they solidified, this was in the 20s. And in 1963, they totally solidified the corporate control of the executive branch. And from 1980 on, they, because of the elimination of the corporate taxes, they were able to buy Congress too, which is where we're at. We have progressive wings in both parties that are at least more responsive to the people, but they get bought off easily. There's a lot of people that are already, talking about the squad. And, I'm seeing the squad not doing much but raising money in my news feed. Yeah, send us money. Help us get reelected. I don't like the way you're spending my money as it is. Of course, it's not my money because I'm a ward of the state. I get supported by the state. I had to take a bullet to do it, but that's not my money. It's not my taxes. But I am like concerned for my fellows and the way their money's spent. Lippmann was writing about the cultivation of ignorance, the advantage of the elites, whose ordained right to govern without popular knowledge or interference was a running theme in his many books. It's a running theme in mine too. So that, it's just H.L. Mencken talked about this a lot. It's just they made it so that we, it's the whole Trump thing. It's like we've glorified stupidity and stigmatized intelligence. During the Cold War, with the emergence of news departments and new television networks, and later on new communications technologies, this ignorance required a certain degree of conscious cultivation. It was during this period culture itself turned to the state's purposes. The results are before us there too, utterly obvious. Well, you've got, Operation Mockingbird, buying off the press and spreading disinformation, and you've got the elimination of the what's it called, Fair Something Act, where they had to tell us the truth. They're allowed to lie to us in the new, as news now, because of law they did away with. One, the extent to which Americans are utterly oblivious to what goes on in the world around them is not short of astonishing. Even the educated, above-average reader of the New York Times typically does not the foggiest idea of the truths Mate unearthed in his OPCW reporting, or the Pentagon and CIA's support of fanatical jihadists who have sought the downfall of the secular government in Damascus for the past decade, or the immense fraud of Russiagate, or countless other matters of consequence. Well, this is where it gets mixed up. What's real and what isn't? Yes, they've been running a proxy war in Syria for the last 10 years. And 1978 is when, and this is Brzezinski under Carter, that established the foundation on which Al-Qaeda and all these other mercenary armies are built on. And it's Wahhabis, it's Wahhabism is Zionism for Muslims. Chauvinistic militant nationalism. Religious chauvinistic militant nationalism. Read the above noted New Yorker piece. I probably should read some Walter Lippmann. I've heard of him before, but I've never read anything of it. He gets mentioned quite a bit when people are talking about the history of clandestine operations in our government. Read the above noted New Yorker piece on censorship at Reddit. Side by side and without a pause, read Alan McLeod's mid-press piece on the same topic. This is the manufacture of ignorance as plainly as it can be displayed. It is by way of this prevalent ignorance that the U.S. has turned itself from a republic to imperial power in the course of 7 decades, while uttering the word empire is counted evidence of a deranged mind, who us? 2, as the reading exercise just recommended, will indicate our prevalent ignorance is not challenged. And again, new technology is the vehicle by which this challenge is pressed. And to challenge American ignorance is more or less inevitably to challenge the American empire. Take note, your Times reading friends, all those addicted to the baby talk of NPR, the silliness of MSNBC, and the faux seriousness of CNN, will proceed happily in the dark, having nothing to worry about because they do not know anything and do not want to be disturbed. No, it is the producers and consumers of independent media who are the concern of those elites defending themselves against the scrutiny of a threatening minority of people who have learned the value of thinking and seeing for themselves. There's the FBI COINTELPRO memo. Here's some anti Black Panther propaganda from COINTELPRO days, the FBI. They're going to sow division between the Black Panthers and another group called SNCC by circulating a statement that said, according to zoologists, the main difference between a panther and the other large cats is that the panther has the smallest head. This is biologically true. Publicity to this effect might help neutralize Black Panther recruiting efforts. Those of a certain age should have no trouble recalling the extensive FBI and intelligence program fashions to infiltrate the left, as it was then, to plant agent provocateurs, to cultivate violence, just as the CIA did and does in nations it wishes to destabilize. The soporific suburbanites washing their cars were not the Cold War era worry. Those with their eyes open or opening were the worry. Don't I know it? This was the nature of the war, and that is the nature of the war now. So this is the war, right? Yeah. There is no left in our time. There is only the left. It is now a mere fashion statement to identify oneself as a leftist. Gore Vidal once remarked, we don't have politics in America, we have elections. To borrow and bend the phrase, we don't have a left in America, we have passingly stylish posers, almost invariably ill-educated and ill-read. I don't know, I know a few that aren't. I know a lot that aren't. Given how lost these people are in the woke rubbish and all the bunkum attached to identity of politics, and ignorance of another order, our left is a sitting duck for those intent on leading it down harmless paths and away, far, far away from all the questions to do with power. That's what we used to call CIA co-opt, interdict, or assassinate. That most people, it doesn't take much to get somebody to think and act the way you want them to think and act. It's co-opting them. And if you're not successful at that, it's a little bit more difficult to interdict them. Character assassination is a real popular way of interdiction. Keeping the cops all up their ass all the time is part of it. But keep those flags flying, Tony. Bomb Syrians and sanction Venezuelans in the name of BLM and gay people. Take pitiable people into the CIA's corridors as they spout all the coded language of identity. A language without meaning. Keep the poser pundits in their audiences. I'm progressive. I'm a leftist. I'm a socialist. I'm an old hippie. I read The Nation, harmlessly preoccupied with the distractions they need to assuage. How do you say this? Assuage? What's the proper pronunciation for ASSUAGE? Assuage, I think it is. Oh, it's a French word. Turned it. Yeah, assuage. There's 18 pronunciations in English, in British English, though. Okay. Anyway, back to what we're reading. Keep everyone calm as you tell them that protecting them from the perilous impurities of free speech only looks like censorship. This is the war of some Americans, a few waged against most Americans in the service of an empire that must be occluded as long as this is possible. This is how it's waged and where. Understanding this is the first step out of our darkness towards some flickering light. Okay. I'm an old hippie. We've seen this shit coming straight along. You know, that we recognize the mental conditioning, that the programming of our neighbors that goes, it has been going on. You know, there's something like they said, the pace of the war then is the same as now. It's just it's digitized. So let's move on to the kiwi farms real quick. Okay, that wasn't found. Because this is like what's really sad. Let's see if I can go back on it, find this video. I blocked them a couple hours ago. It just got too stupid. Here's this ass clown calling himself Geralt of Rivia. Fuckhead, let's see if I can find the thread. Well, I found my thread where he came at me in my thread. After and he you know, this guy, all I did was like react to his post, and he called me out. Come on, let's find his post. Let's go back to the beginning of his bullshit. Because this is so typical of like the cultivation of stupidity. And there's hate. Here we go. Here it is. Oh, they haven't shut me off from this. I gotta unblock this idiot so I can see the whole thing. Okay, so here's this Geralt of Rivia. How can the Kiwis raise the 41 to over 69%? Laughing my ass off. The 41% is a number that they call it the 41% club. They mistakenly think that's the number of transgender people that commit suicide every year, which is not, that 41% of transgender people commit suicide. No, this is not true. That was from an article. It was a single survey, and somebody's telling me there was a survey of South American sex workers. I have to look into that. They come up with the 41%, and the number was a number that Greta, what's her name, was spread around. That Martel, Greta something from the Trans Lifeline, trying to sell her fake charity. They claim to be providing this unique service, and they never answer their fucking telephones. They only have coverage from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time. So here's this idiot. The scourge of trannyism and half-baked journalism spreads like the plague. We must double our efforts to contain this menace. After all, we are known as the site that literally creates X people. And here's the douchebag. We don't have to do anything when they're doing all the hard work for us on their own. All we have to do is simply continue existing with our intact penises. See, now this is right there. Keep that in mind. Intact penis. You have, in order to be a proper transgender person, in the minds of these people, you have to mutilate your testicle, your genitals. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're cutting it off. You're putting a stink gash in, I think they call it. Yeah, there's a few botch jobs, but most of them, I don't know anybody who's unhappy with their installation. I mean, I know some that are real pleased with it. It's not in my cards. It's just not my thing. I'm going to be healed by ancient astronauts, or I'm going to die and be born properly and I've paid my penance for whatever the fuck it was that my ancestor did that got me born into this shit in the first place. That's where I'm at. My dream body is damaged, and I take an oath. There's no blood on these hands, and there won't be. If this ass clown shows up, he's gonna be real surprised at what happens, because he's gonna be real surprised at what happens. And it's not anything I've said is going to happen either. That's the magic of Pungu. And see, here's another misconception. If all it takes for a meltdown and closed boards on Reddit is to have bots follow them with usernames like I follow men, the answer is simple. Keep existing so they can see. And so, all I did was, I gave him the mad at the internet reaction. And dude jumps in, thanks for proving my point, Miss Tommy Jane Wasserberg. I don't know, what does ITT mean? Probably is directing them to go look at something about me. Oh, in this thread. Oh, it's announcing my presence. No, you didn't tag me. So my response to the first one is, my penis isn't tapped and staying that way, douche-tart. You seem to have a lot of resentment toward transgender women. Is that because you can't get laid and they can? And the other one, it's like, you fools are truly pathetic. Firstly, that 41% is an old number from a single survey from 7 years ago, and it's attempts, not successful suicides. Nextly, you retards are seeing the lunatic fringe and assuming the entire transgender population is like that. Current long-term clinical studies are showing that when transgender people of any age are simply permitted to be themselves in a supportive environment, they thrive. The satisfaction rates for GCS are very high, with most of the regrets due to botched jobs and poor post-operative care. All of the usual behavioral health disorders associated with transgender people, most notably self-harm and suicide, fall back into typical ranges when our lives are not cluttered with violent, self-loathing perverts like yourself. I had my quarterly checkup with my shrink the other day. Went very well. She's impressed with how well I've been coping with all this shit that's going on. My God. I mean, there's so much death around me. And lots of death around me. And lots of people needing just supportive words. And I got very few people supporting me. And, there's nobody that I can really talk to about any problems I have with the trolls. That's just like, nobody wants to hear it. I have people telling me just don't even go there. And there's things I just don't bitch about in public much. They're always there. But anyway, all the usual behavioral health disorders associated with transgender people, most notably self-harm and suicide, fall back into typical ranges when our lives are not cluttered with violent, self-loathing perverts like yourself. So here comes the OP. I'm not reading all of that. Besides, I just laugh at idiots who think they can be women. At your age, you ought to know better. LMAO. This is like, cultivated willful stupidity. Here comes someone calling themselves Mewaku. This is Japanese. I'm aware of the study and inconsistencies. However, this is what the TRA touts. Hence the joke. Another statistic and misnomer that you should fix is the violence levels, as the sample population for that study was done on South American prostitutes. Please post the studies. I'm actually not being pedantic. I'm serious. I'm willing to read them if they're from peer-reviewed journals, not journals where the chairman is the publisher, like some of the TRA stuff I've seen. However, TRAs are a plague socially who use silencing tactics. That's trans rights activists. Now, there's trans rights activists, and then there's people associated with PFLAG and HRC who are also trans rights activists. And they're doing the real work. The people on the social networks are just a bunch of narcissistic egomaniacs that are largely not doing anything but causing problems for themselves and everybody around them. There are a lot of fake charities being run. Most I'm calling bullshit on Trans Lifeline. They I don't know. My circle will get wellness checks done by authorities when it's appropriate. I don't know if Trans Lifeline does that or not. But I know they don't answer their fucking telephone. So, however, TRAs are a plague socially who use silencing tactics for control and are regressing sexual equality and all rights for women. That's paranoia. I mean, they're defending their rights. They're not, and they're narcissists. They're not. Anybody who's engaging people like kiwi farmers is not anybody who's credible in the transgender community, in the actual network of local organizers and advocates. These people are not members. Okay, they're just not members. So my response to the laughing at the idiots, of course you're intellectually dishonest, misogynistic, toxic, masculine self isn't going to read anything you can't bap at. I feel sorry for you, for morons like you believe the stupid shit they believe. I'm transgender, intersex male. I go either way, but being a man in a psychotic society is much too difficult for me. I never would have lived this long without killing anybody if I grew up into the sort of man my father and brother were trying to whip me into shape to be. And to the person with the intelligent question, the XY chromosome thing is job based on obsolete biology. There are 6 karyotypes, and the sex of one's genitals does not determine the gender of one's brain. As you say, there's no clearly male or female brain, but there are structures within it that are associated with gendered behavior. Masculinity and femininity present on a spectrum, not one or the other, and a significant portion of the population is born better suited both physically and psychologically for the transgender role. What's mentally ill is the stigmatization of effeminate men and masculine women. We're born this way. Hating on us is a choice. I speak regularly on what we call the trannier-than-mouth thought police, trying to dictate the rules of being transgender to everybody. Dee Price is a prime example of an utterly full of shit TRA projecting a shit ton of internalized transphobia. Their militant exceptionalism is a huge public image problem for the whole community. Demanding equal rights is everybody's obligation to this republic, but demanding special treatment is just being an asshole. So I gave him a bunch of links. First was the source of the 41%. It's Greta Martella pushing it, trying to sell her scam hotline to unsuspecting public. The board ran her off, but I'm still calling bullshit on it because they never answered their phones. Well, how good that's going to do some poor kid freaking out ready to slash themselves. And then I gave him a link to a literature review about follow-up studies and desistance theories about transgender and gender nonconforming children. And my blog had several links, misconceptions propagated by PBS documentary Growing Up Trans, and Julia Serrano had a link, had a blog on transgender psychology, diagnoses, theories, and healthcare that has solid links in it. And then I gave them a study on the mental health of transgender and gender nonconforming youth compared with their peers that I haven't really studied. I just kind of skimmed it. Let's see what they, come up with the numbers that they dig out of here. Yeah. See, here's the intellectual dishonesty. He reads one line plus a whole bunch of other shit nobody cares about. Law, calm down. Also, how can I be misogynistic against an old man? You're misogynistic against yourself. You beat yourself with ignorance. And nobody's had anything intelligent to say since then. Oh, we want to go back to, that's right. We want to go back to this. This is really disturbing. But not to me. Just the thought of them pounding this nasty ass statement at emotionally fragile people. It's really, really bothersome. Lizzie Leslie had posted a thing, how old were you when you realized you were LGBTQAI? I don't know why she puts the A before the I. And so I put it to the Kiwi Farm farmers, how old were you when you realized you weren't LGBTQIA? So that this Geralt idiot, he's like, well, who cares? And he obviously does. And I said, you obviously do something. You didn't know who got you down, child man? Oh, and he's automatically assuming any detractor is an insult. You forget that I jumped in to detract on you, Turkey. I was the one calling you out. You're not calling me out. I called you out. And you're just too stupid to even bother with. Here's another one that's, white supremacist, calling himself Lawrence of Algeria. I'll actually answer your dumb question seriously. You don't need to realize you're heterosexual because that's the default. You can realize that you're homo, bisexual, or mentally ill, tranny. Hence the story of Redditors discovering their truths because they put on a bra. And then here's stares and error messages. I never was gay, so I never thought I was gay, so I'm not gay. It's like trying to prove a negative. You're found not guilty in court, not innocent. That's a good question, Miss Tommy Jane. I think you might be getting the hang of the cyberbullying thing. To Lawrence of Algeria, your statements of fact are nonsense. This idea of default, heterosexuality being default, and mentally ill, transgender people mentally ill. There's 1,500 species that form same-sex bonds. It's a natural thing. It's atypical. It's not default. But this shit happens. It's in our genetic code. The WHO, APA, and AMA have all stated clearly that there's nothing at all pathological about same-sex attraction and transgender identities. To call heterosexuality the default is mythology rooted in questionable interpretations of ancient Hebrew scripture. Call it typical if you like, because the vast majority of people will always be born cishet. But intersex people are no more rare than redheads, and it's not a mental illness. Redditors are not at all exemplary of the mainstream of the transgender community. They're often mentally ill, but they're also most often pariahs in the community. Chloe Segal is a very sad example of that. She was completely crushed between Kiwi Farms and the Portland kinky, the kinky trans people in Portland. They're very, BDSM kind of wild, crazy shit. And she just got no acceptance anywhere. She's unable to get the behavioral health therapy she needed. She got booted. She got released right before she killed herself. She should have been in the hospital. If she had been at Facebook and the support groups that were professionally managed, she would likely not have set herself on fire because she would have had people to talk to, and there would have been people on the ground that were sent to her by more responsible people than the people that she was trying to hang out with. I'm not going to name them people again. There's, one of them's prominent. I haven't checked on her lately. I blocked her a long time ago. I can't watch this shit anymore. So I asked Stares of Error message, when did you realize that you weren't gay? People are born with the potentials for their sexual orientation and gender identities hardwired in, but from the moment of birth onward, those behavioral traits are culturally constructed. Transgender people most often knew what age they were when they realized that they didn't fit in properly. But what age do cishet people realize that they do? Here's what I wanted to read. This is sick. This is a standard. I've seen this posted numerous times at directed at transgender women. You will never be a real woman. You have no womb, you have no ovaries, you have no eggs. That's not what defines a woman, though. You're a homosexual man twisted by drugs and surgery into a crude mockery of nature's perfection. No, I'm not. I haven't had any surgery. I mean, I had some surgery when I was little that I don't know what they did. All the validation you get is two-faced and half-hearted. I don't know where you're, behind your back, people mock you. Your parents are disgusted and ashamed of you. Your friends laugh at your ghoulish appearance behind closed doors. I mean, why do people even like think in these terms? Men are utterly repulsed by you. Thousands of years of evolution have allowed men to sniff out broads with incredible efficiency. Even trannies who pass look uncanny and unnatural to a man. Your bone structure is a dead giveaway. And even if you manage to get a drunk guy home with you, he'll turn tail and bolt the second he gets a whiff of your diseased, infected axe wound. You will never be happy. You wrench out a fake smile every single morning and tell yourself it's going to be okay, but deep inside you feel the depression creeping up like a weed, ready to crush you under the unbearable weight. Eventually it'll be too much to bear. You'll buy a rope, tie a noose, put it around your neck, and plunge into the cold abyss. Your parents will find you heartbroken but relieved that they no longer have to live with the unbearable shame and disappointment. They'll bury you with a headstone marked with your birth name, and every passerby for the rest of eternity will know a man is buried there. Your body will decay and go back to the dust, and all that will remain of your legacy is a skeleton that is unmistakably male. This is your fate. This is what you chose. There's no turning back. That's just nonsense. It's just insane nonsense. It's not me, for one thing. I'm an intersex person. I'm living with what I was born with, or what they left me with after they fucked me up. And here, this is Thomas Highway. This is just totally full of shit, man. Straight people are born straight. Gay people are born gay. People with gender dysphoria are born mentally ill, and no social coddling will reduce the suicide rate. That's just not true. That's part of reality. Let's see the other tired old shit. Oh, here's the second piece of tired up old shit. You will never pass. You will lock yourself away in your home and become more and more bitter and delusional as you desperately try to convince yourself that you look like a woman. I have no trouble convincing other people. I have to tell you the truth. Your only friends, and I use that word very lightly, will be fellow castrated men who will also be suffering the same regret and mental anguish over their poorly thought out decision. Well, you're wrong there too. Most of my friends are cis women. My closest friends are cis women and cis men. I don't even know. I don't keep count. It's just something that's not anybody's business to be crying over, like, a transgender woman's genital status. Some of us have our have working junk down, penises down there, and others don't. It's none of anybody's business unless they want to volunteer it. Fellow castrated men will also be suffering the same regret and mental anguish over their poorly thought out decision. The entirety of your friendship will be mutual reassurance that you didn't make a mistake. Discussing how to make other people fuck up as bad as you did, so you won't be alone in your misery. I think this is what bothers them most of all, is seeing happy transgender people. They think we're faking it. But you will be alone even around other people. Always alone in your head, always suspicious of what others really think about you, always knowing the truth that they're only humoring you out of pity. Despised by all, hideous a freak, incapable of having love and family or genuine human connections. Slowly, your grip on reality will slip away until, on a rare moment, you're forced to confront it. It will be such a shock to you, such a painful reminder of what you actually are, that the intrusive thoughts will hijack your every waking moment. God, talk about intrusive thoughts. I mean, what compels people like this to think so deeply about other people's stuff that has nothing to do with them? Sadomasochistic sociopathic voyeurism, a brand new psychosexual disorder, digital. It's a digital disorder. I think I've had about enough of this shit. My throat's getting scratchy. I've been doing it for over an hour. That's plenty. Namaste, motherfuckers. I'm not gonna waste my time with your sites. Now you're just a waste of time. You're a total waste of oxygen and bandwidth and everything else. And the sooner you all die or get hauled off to another planet, the happier everybody on this planet's gonna be. Thanks for watching. Bye.